Hello friends, please like and subscribe to the channel and enjoy the stories. This is part of the story of how I met my husband and fell in love with him. I'm working on the rest of it, but this is truly the most important part of the story, as it's how I fell in love with him. When I was 15, I was hanging out with some friends in a wooded area near my school. We often went there after school to chat and relax before heading home for dinner. On colder days, we would sometimes light a small fire to keep warm, as it's pretty safe to do so in the Netherlands due to the wet climate. However, boys tend to act a little reckless around fire. One time, a boy in our group was playing with a stick he'd set alight, using it like a torch. Somehow, the burning stick or an ember dropped onto my school bag, which quickly caught fire. The flames spread to my jacket, hair, and skirt, as the plastic backpack melted and dripped onto my clothes. Everyone panicked, and out of instinct, I ran toward the school, which only made the fire worse. An adult, probably a teacher, saw me, pushed me to the ground, and managed to put out the flames. But by then, the damage was extensive. I was taken to the hospital, and my parents were contacted. I was burned from the top of my head down to my leg, just above my knee. Most of my hair on one side was burned off, and I had bad burns along my jaw and neck from where the backpack and jacket had melted. Fortunately, the wool skirt I was wearing didn't ignite easily and offered some protection to my legs. The burns on my right arm and side were much worse, as the synthetic materials of my jacket and backpack had melted into my skin. I spent weeks in the hospital and have had multiple surgeries over the years to graft skin from my legs onto my chest and arm. When I wear jeans and long sleeves, you'd hardly notice the scars except for a line of scars up my neck, which I can often hide with makeup. Being a redhead with pale skin actually helps because my scars are also quite pale. After the accident, I became shy and withdrawn, always wearing long sleeves and hoodies to hide myself, especially while waiting for my hair to grow back. I have several rectangular scars on the insides of my thighs from skin grafts for the burned areas on my side, chest, shoulder, and back. Most people are familiar with Mormon missionaries, those young men in white shirts with black name tags, often riding bikes. In the Netherlands, they stand out even more since they're about the only ones who wear helmets. Missionary work in the Mormon Church is voluntary, and missionaries are assigned a country or area, moving to new cities every few months. About a year after my accident, a new missionary came to our city. He was very nice like the others, and also very cute. I was 16 and he was 19, and I later found out that we shared the same birthday. He'd been serving for nearly a year and spoke Dutch very well, though with a northern accent. He was also an amazing artist and would draw cartoon characters for the kids at church. As part of their mission, the missionaries did community service. At a small fair, they set up a booth where he was painting children's faces. I saw him several times that day and talked to him a bit while he was painting my younger sister's face. He kept asking if he could paint me, but I refused and went back to the other booths. Later, a friend who had a crush on the other missionary wanted to go back to the booth, so I ended up there again. The chair was empty at that moment, and he asked once more if he could paint me, saying he had an idea in mind but wouldn't tell me what. With my friend and the other missionary encouraging me, I finally agreed. I pulled down my hoodie and turned to give him my left side. He asked me to turn the other way, showing him the side with my scars. Nervously, I turned, and he started to paint, gently moving my hair to get to the scars on my jaw and neck. It felt like he spent a long time painting, much longer than he'd spent on my sister. When he was done, my friend stared at me silently. The other missionary gave him a high five, saying, "Nice." I asked to see a mirror, and my friend dug out her makeup mirror. When I looked, I ran. I ran to our nearby church building, found an empty room, curled up in a corner, and cried. He had painted a beautiful phoenix in vibrant oranges, yellows, and reds over my scars, incorporating them as the phoenix's tail that rose and framed my face. For the first time, I felt truly beautiful. He had seen something in me that I couldn't see myself and made me look beautiful in a way I never thought possible. Eventually, my friend found me and sat with me, wiping away my tears, probably more to protect the paint than to comfort me. She helped me clean up and walk outside. Throughout the day, people I knew, and even some I didn't know, complimented the painting on my face. They looked at me, not my scars, and it was all because he had shown me a different reflection of myself. That day, I knew I wanted to marry him. I wanted to be with someone who could see past my scars, who saw the real me, and who made me feel beautiful. But I was only 16, and he was nearly a man, unable to date as a missionary and soon to leave for a new city, and eventually the United States. Ironically, after that moment, I found it hard to talk to him. Girls are silly like that, I think. A few months later, he received a transfer to Zwolle, and on his last day, he went around saying goodbye to everyone. My family invited the missionaries for dinner, and this was the first time I had spoken with him much since the fair. I was shy and nervous, but before he left that night, I gathered my courage and asked if I could write to him. He smiled and said yes, giving me a card with his new address. After a week, I wrote my first letter to him, thanking him for the beautiful painting and asking if he had a photo of it. He wrote back saying he'd thought I was upset with him because I'd run away, and unfortunately, he hadn't taken a photo. Instead, he sent a drawing that resembled the phoenix he'd painted on me. To this day, I wish I had a photo of it. I got married at 20 to a man who, while not necessarily a bad person, wasn't good for me. Put simply, he was a deadweight. He didn't actively do things wrong, but he didn't do anything right either. And while I don't consider myself a typical woman, if there even is such a thing, I'm also stubborn, and I wanted my marriage to work. I'm strong, independent, and I don't struggle with self-esteem or insecurities. I'm comfortable in my own skin, with my intelligence, body, and personality. I've built a career where I earn well, I can fix my car, use power tools, and learn whatever I need to get things done. I say what I mean and expect others to do the same. No passive-aggressive nonsense. For 13 years, I was the main breadwinner, handled most things at home, raised the kids mostly by myself, and yet I stayed, thinking marriages are meant to last. My husband thought I didn't need him, that I was too capable. But he was wrong. I needed support, partnership, friendship, even just recognition of how hard I was working to stay afloat. But he wasn't that person. For perspective, I went through 3 years of infertility treatments, enduring endless medications, injections, side effects, and disappointment every single month. I was open about my struggles, thinking maybe it would help others too. Despite this, he remained oblivious, unaware I needed emotional support. It wasn't that I didn't tell him. He was just that dense, emotionally absent, like a 5-year-old in an adult's body. Once I finally had kids, he became more of a burden than a help. I was exhausted from work, and then spent my evenings walking on eggshells, trying to prevent the kids from setting him off while he ignored us and played on his phone. Eventually, I asked him to leave, and my life improved immediately. I was free of all that dead weight and finally happy on my own. I have a good life and lots of support, a great salary, family who helps with the kids, wonderful neighbors, and a church family that pitches in when I need it. But it's still exhausting. Every day, I'd come home to a chaotic mess. A screaming 4-year-old, a talkative 10-year-old, a barking dog, a meowing cat. Everything and everyone needed me, all at once. It was a constant drain. Did I think about dating? Absolutely not. I was too busy, and honestly, who would want a woman with kids who was independent and successful? I had no time, no interest, and no need. That's when life, or maybe God, stepped in. He was an intern that summer, brilliant, good-looking, hard-working, someone who fixed his own car and had a budget. We had over a 10-year age gap, and I figured there was no chance he'd be interested in my busy suburban life. But one weekend after the summer ended, he surprised me by kissing me. Since then, we've been inseparable. Let me tell you. This guy is amazing. He actually communicates. He tells me what he's thinking, even if it's uncomfortable. He's financially responsible and has an 800-plus credit score at 22. We talk about deep stuff, things that really matter. He asks about my day and remembers what I tell him. I don't care about flowers or jewelry. I just want a real partner. On Valentine's Day, he filled every inbox I had with memes, sweet notes, and pictures of cats. When I first went to his apartment, I passed out on his bed, only to learn later that he went around oiling doors nearby so they wouldn't wake me up. He cooks, cleans, and appreciates everything I do. If I go out of my way to help him, he notices. Once, I went to drop off something for him, and he was uncharacteristically short with me. I was going to call and check on him, but he beat me to it, apologizing for being rude and expressing how grateful he was. This man owns his mistakes and apologizes right away. Who does that? And he calls me out when I'm wrong. He doesn't let me get away with things, and he doesn't let himself either. It's refreshing. He's also embraced my kids. One evening, when my daughter was in a bad mood, he noticed I was about to break down. Without missing a beat, he took her and the dog outside so I could cook in peace. He'd check on me, give me a hug, and say it would be okay. Then he brought the kids in and got them to help set the table. I actually got to sit down for once. After dinner, he told the kids he couldn't play until he helped me clean up, and by help, he meant doing everything for me. It was amazing. I didn't know what to do with myself. I keep telling him how much I appreciate him, but he thinks this is normal, that all guys are like this. I tell him he's wrong. Guys like him are rare. And the most mind-blowing thing? He wants me. He could date anyone his age, without kids, without baggage. But he chose me, my kids, my stretch marks, my sarcasm, my strength. I don't know what I did to deserve him, but I'm going to do everything I can to make him as happy as he makes me. My heart didn't even know I needed him. I'll be telling this story from two perspectives. First, my side, and then I'll share what she told me about her experience. I'm not really sure where to begin, but I guess I'll start with the very first time I saw her. It was a few days after Christmas, and I'd just gotten a punching bag for my birthday, an inflatable one that I could take outside. So there I was, working on my moves. I lived in a complex at the time, so the park was surrounded by several houses. After a while, I noticed two girls up on a balcony watching me. One had blonde hair, and the other had brown hair, and they were both giggling. I thought they were laughing at my moves, which kind of annoyed me, so I just tried to pretend I didn't notice. Eventually, they went back inside, and I went back to my punching bag, eventually forgetting about them. A month or two into the new year, I was walking down the hallway at school when I saw the blonde-haired girl holding hands with one of my friends. Let's call him Muffyed, because, well, he looked like he had a mop on his head. I didn't recognize her as the girl on the balcony. I only knew her as Muffyed's girlfriend. I stopped to chat with him for a bit, and while we were talking, the girl, I'll call her Samantha, pointed at the Jordan logo on my sweater and said, "You should sew a little penis onto him." We all laughed, and that was that. I didn't see much of her after that. The most contact I had was when I'd occasionally go to their alternative class to visit my cousin. Even then, I didn't see them much since they were always out and about. At one point, my cousin came over and told me that Samantha had broken up with Muffyed. I just thought, interesting, and glanced over at her place. I didn't plan on doing anything about it, though, because I was actually dating someone else at the time. I didn't want to be that guy. When summer rolled around, I signed up for a program called NASCARs, where you could learn to work with metal and make stuff like metal chairs. I invited my girlfriend at the time, let's call her Wolf since she thought she was an actual wolf, to join the program too, just so we could spend some time together. We didn't hang out much since she went to another school, but guess who was also there? Samantha, along with her sister. Now, something inside me suspected that Samantha might like me. We'd chat a lot whenever Wolf wasn't around. One time, Samantha saw me reading a comic book and said, "You like comic books?" "Yeah, I read a few," I replied, trying to play it cool, even though I actually read a lot. "That's cute," she said. I couldn't tell if she was being sarcastic, so I just kept a blank look on my face, but inside I felt something. Not anger or annoyance, but more like an intense kind of happiness. Interactions like that started to make me genuinely interested in her. We eventually came up with this inside joke, where we just flip each other off. It wasn't mean-spirited, I'd just catch her eye and give her the finger and she'd do the same back. After the program, we'd often walk home together since we lived nearby. My brother saw us walking one day and joked, "I'm gonna tell Wolf." I just laughed it off, secretly hoping he wouldn't say anything because I was really enjoying getting closer to Samantha. Now, you might think I was being a jerk for being interested in Samantha while I was still with Wolf. I'd totally agree. Except Wolf was pretty, out there. She genuinely thought she was a wolf and would howl at the full moon. She never wanted to spend time together, and eventually I just lost interest in the relationship. I knew I'd need to break things off soon. A few days after the program ended, Samantha texted me. We started talking, and the conversation shifted toward relationships. She asked if I was in one, which I found a bit odd since I hadn't exactly hidden it. I told her that I was, but also that I was planning on breaking up with Wolf. She replied, "Oh, well, I have something to tell you." "What's that?" I asked. "I like you." If you've ever been in high school, you'll know how huge that was. My heart practically did a backflip, but I played it cool and replied, "Don't you have a boyfriend?" even though I knew she and Mofed had broken up. She confirmed they were done, and after that we started hanging out in the park near our houses. I didn't want to jump straight into a relationship, both because I wanted to get to know her better, and because I still had to figure out how to end things with Wolf. We'd hang out in the park with kids playing around us, and I think she liked seeing how I interacted with them. Eventually, we started meeting up later at night so we could avoid all the noise. We'd lie in the grass and watch the clouds. She told me I was her first cloud-watching buddy. During the day, we'd sit outside my house and joke around. One time, she offered to read my palm, saying she could see things in people's hands. I don't remember exactly what she told me, but I do remember her later confessing that she just wanted an excuse to hold my hand. She was into all kinds of mystic stuff and asked me what my horoscope was. When I told her I was a Sagittarius, she grinned and said she was a Pisces. After that, she'd send me posts like, "Pisces and Sagittarius are a perfect match," and jokes about how Pisces are freaks in the sheets, both of which she later proved true. One day she asked, "Can I ask you a weird favor?" "Yeah, what's up?" "Can I lay on your back?" "Sure," I replied. So I lay down on my stomach and she got on top of me. It felt really nice. Even though it was just friendly, I still felt something special. Finally, after days of trying to meet up with Wolf and tell her things weren't working out, I managed to break up with her over text. That night, I went to the park to see Samantha again. When I told her I'd ended things with Wolf, the night felt calm and almost magical. I reached out and took her hand. She smiled. In my head, I just kept hearing, "Kiss her." So I did. A quick peck that somehow felt longer than it was. When I pulled back, I thought, "Oh crap, what have I done?" But then she leaned in and kissed me back, smiling the whole time. I took her hand and pulled her over me so we were lying there, face to face. Her hair fell over my face and we kept kissing. It was like time stopped. We were wrapped up in each other as if kissing was some new civil right we'd just discovered. After a while, my mom called me inside, since it was midnight and I was only 14. When I got inside, she said, "You know she likes you, right?" "Yeah, I know," I replied, trying to hide my grin. "But you have a girlfriend," she said. "Not anymore," I told her. "I broke up with her." "Oh, well, never mind." My mom almost ruined my mood, but I went up to my room and started texting Samantha again, feeling happier than ever. It was the first year of my relationship with the girl I love, and it all started back in July 2017. She was dating my best friend at the time, but their relationship only lasted a few weeks and ended on bad terms. I only saw her once while they were dating, and I barely said a word to her, being the shy and socially awkward person that I am. I think I managed to say a few hellos, but that was it. The next time I saw her was on October 31st. I don't remember much of that night since I was pretty drunk, but by then she and my friends seemed to be on good terms again. That's when I really started talking to her. In late November, we began chatting in group chats. I feel much more comfortable talking online, so this gave me the chance to get to know her better. As we became more friendly, I realized that she wasn't at all the way my best friend had described her. We started hanging out more, and the more time I spent with her, the closer I felt. In our friend group, there were plenty of people, but something about her felt different. I felt this unusual connection, a bond I couldn't explain. I'm usually uncomfortable with hugs, but every time she hugged me, it felt warm and comforting. Our relationship took a big step forward on New Year's Eve. I had one of my depressive episodes and left all the group chats, feeling lonely and like I'd never be happy. But she messaged me privately, asking what was wrong and why I felt that way. There aren't many people I talk to about my difficult childhood, but I felt comfortable opening up to her. She had the perfect responses, and I'll never forget some of the things she told me that night. I felt better, and that conversation stayed with me. In January, we started hanging out once a week with our group of about 7 friends. By this time, she was a close friend, and I wanted to protect her from some of the creepy guys in our group. The way they treated her made me feel angry, and I wasn't sure why I felt so strongly. I tried to convince myself that I couldn't like her. She was my best friend's ex. But seeing her in those situations got to me, and I started struggling with my emotions. My frustration even led me to self-harm, something I'd never done before. I knew it sounded extreme, but it was the only way I felt I could deal with my anger. At the beginning of February, my friend asked if I liked her. I admitted that I wasn't sure because of their past relationship, and I didn't want to betray our friendship. To my surprise, he was okay with it and even encouraged me to go for it. I decided I'd tell her how I felt on February 13th, the day before Valentine's Day. I wanted to tell her in person, but I was nervous. I had plenty of chances to say something, but I just couldn't. I ended up confessing my feelings online. She didn't know how to react at first and said she needed time to think. After 4 long days, she agreed to meet up to talk. I was anxious and unsure if I'd go, but I couldn't let her down. We met at the train station and went to a bench on a hill where we talked. She said that, because of her last relationship, she wanted to take things slow. We agreed to see how things would go before deciding on a relationship. We started spending time together every other day, and gradually I got more comfortable talking to her in person. I was still nervous, though. At one point, I even asked if it was okay to hold her hand. On March 3rd, it was snowing, and we met up. By then, I wanted to know if she could see us in a relationship, so I asked, and she said yes. I'll never forget that day. As our first date, we watched Black Panther. I didn't really like the movie, but I did end up with salsa on my pants from the seat, which was pretty funny. We kept things slow, and it took a few weeks before I felt comfortable kissing her. Our first kiss was on that same hill, a memory I'll always cherish. Almost a year has passed since then, and I know I'm a different person because of her. Without her, I'd still be the introverted, kissless guy I used to be. I've loved every single moment of this year together. For the past 6 months, we've slept together in this bed every night. And now, while she's in the hospital, it feels empty and lonely without her. So, Kate, if you ever see this post, I love you. I can't wait to spend many more years with you. To anyone who's read all of this, thanks. Sorry for any typos, it's almost 4 a.m. I'll try to make this as short as possible, but it's almost 4 years of history, so bear with me. I'm a 22-year-old senior in college. Back in August 2018, when I was a freshman, I went to visit my 2 best friends at their big university. The first time I went, I saw them talking to one of their new guy friends, and it felt like a scene out of a movie. I became instantly obsessed with him the moment I laid eyes on him, even though I didn't speak to him. Let's call him Chase. Not long after, I wrote in my notes, "I will marry Chase." It wasn't a manifestation thing. I didn't even know what that was back then, but I thought it would be cool to look back on if anything ever happened. I visited my friends a few more times before freshman year ended, each time hoping to meet Chase. But coincidentally, he was never around when I visited, which was a bit of a letdown, though I still had a good time. Fast forward to January 2020. I transferred to their big university, excited to finally get a traditional college experience and to be closer to Chase. I figured I'd run into him sooner or later. Well, I didn't. After 2 months on campus, we got sent home due to COVID. I returned to campus in August 2020, and the first night back, I went to a party. Who was there? Chase. We finally talked, and he was just as cute and nice as I expected, but I didn't feel the spark I was anticipating. I knew I had probably overhyped the whole thing in my mind, but I wasn't disappointed. It was just a normal conversation. He flirted a little, but I saw him talking to other girls too, so I didn't take it personally. The next time I saw Chase was in April 2021 when I moved home due to COVID. We were hanging out with a group of friends, and as I looked at him, I found him already staring at me. He looked a little awkward when he realized I caught him, but I just acted like nothing happened. I couldn't help but wonder, why was he staring at me? Did he think I was cute? Or was it just a random stare? The next time I saw him was in August 2021. We hung out again with a big group, talked like normal, but nothing special came of it. At this point, I started convincing myself that I should just move on. Obviously, nothing was going to happen with him since we had talked plenty of times before, and it was always just normal, not romantic. Now I want to pause and share a bit about me and Chase. I have a major fear of rejection, so I've never admitted to liking someone first. That's a big reason I've never had a boyfriend. Most people would tell their friends to try and hook them up with someone they like, but I always keep my interest to myself due to the fear of rejection. I know it's something that's holding me back from finding someone. Throughout these years, I've found myself attracted to other guys, but I couldn't shake my feelings for Chase. He's very attractive, and a lot of girls talk about him. He's had flings here and there, but throughout college, he's never had a girlfriend, which I found odd given how many girls are interested in him. Fast forward to January 10th, 2022. I'm at a bar with friends, and guess who shows up? Chase. I give him a hug, and we chat for a bit. It was just like every other interaction we had, normal. But after that conversation, I really let go of the idea of anything happening between us and just enjoyed the rest of the night. As the bar started to close and everyone was leaving, I was walking out with my drunk friend, and I passed Chase. He asked me what I was doing after, and I told him I was taking my friend home and then going to Uber to mine. He then said, "Let's go," and walked with me to take my friend home. On the walk, he held my hand, and we kept holding hands all the way there. We were both a bit tipsy, but as they say, drunk actions are sober thoughts. At that moment, I felt completely elated, like I couldn't believe I was holding my dream guy's hand. Chase ended up getting sick later on because he drank too much, so our friends picked us up, and we both went home. We haven't spoken since then. Fast forward to today. I haven't seen Chase since then, and part of me regrets not reaching out the next day to start a conversation, or at least make it known that I was interested. But I'm trying not to dwell on it. I've been hoping to run into him again, and now that graduation is coming up in May, time is ticking, and I've been feeling anxious. Well, I just got the best news ever. My best friend is having a trip for her birthday in a few weeks, and she told me she invited our guy friends, and Chase is going. I feel like this is my last chance to see if anything could ever happen between us. I feel like the note I wrote in my phone, the moment he stared at me, and the hand-holding in January are all leading up to this moment. I've silently been obsessed with this man since 2018, and just when I was about to give up, I realized he might be interested too. Please tell me if I'm delusional, but I feel like this might be a sign. And the fact that he's never had a girlfriend during college, despite hearing so many girls talk about wanting him? Has he been waiting for me too? I really hope I get my happy ending. Thanks for reading if you made it to the end. Please share your thoughts or advice. Update for anyone who cares. The cabin trip ended up getting canceled, and I was distraught, thinking I'd never see him again. But last week, I went out to the bars for my best friend's birthday, and guess who was there? Chase. We exchanged numbers and hung out the entire night. He asked me out, and we're going to lunch on Saturday. I hope this captures your story and the emotions behind it.